Good evening. President Jacob Zuma will lead a South African delegation to the Extra-Ordinary SADC Double Troika summit scheduled to be held in Gaborone, Botswana on Monday. The Extraordinary Summit will consider the political and security situation in the SADC region, paying particular attention to the situation in the Kingdom of Lesotho. Lesotho Prime Minister Pakadita Mosisili is also expected to attend. A decision will be made on whether or not to release the report of the commission that investigated the country's instability and the death of former army commander Maparankwe Mohau. Mosisili's government has maintained that SADC should wait for a court application by Lieutenant Colonel Tifo Hashatsi in which he demands that the commission's findings be quashed. Officials met in Gaborone yesterday and say that it seems likely that the heads of state will want to reach agreement with Lesotho to release the report. Our correspondent Jacob joins us live from Gaborone, the capital of Botswana. Nangtane, what is different this time around on the agenda?
Well, Mahindra, you'll remember that all the shuttle diplomacy that's been happening with SADC facilitator Cyril Ramaphosa, Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa, was centered around bringing the factions in Lesotho together to the table, that is the government and the opposition. And you remember that that government changed hands since August 2014, or rather August 2015, when we had the events that are still contested in terms of whether it was a coup in Lesotho or whether it was the army trying to disarm the police, as they said at the time. But all of that diplomacy has been to bring the factions together in Lesotho. But remember that it then ended up with the killing of Army Commander Maparankwe Mohau when the army tried to arrest him. And that is when then SADC upped its ante, if you like, and then instituted the SADC Commission of Inquiry. And that SADC Commission of Inquiry was requested, according to Prime Minister Pakadita Mosisili, by the government of Lesotho. And what is different now is that where there have been delays, and the government of Lesotho has been avoiding, if you like, meetings because it says, as you've rightfully pointed out in your introduction there, that what it wants is for SADC to respect the judiciary in Lesotho and judicial processes in Lesotho. What is going to happen now, it looks like SADC wants to say, well, and we know that the SADC Executive Secretary, Stagomina Tex, wrote a letter saying that even though there's a court case going on, and the SADC Commission did say also in its representations in court that SADC should not be subject to court proceedings in Lesotho, and the courts in Lesotho do not have jurisdiction to hear that matter or to try the SADC Commission or its members or people that are appointed by SADC. So basically what we're seeing different now probably is that SADC may want to say what it thinks instead of trying to get Lesotho to come to the table, which it has been trying to do. But whether or not the decision that will be reached will be out of consensus or will be an ultimatum issued by SADC, all of that is what will be seen tomorrow when the meeting actually sits down. Mahindra.
Ntakwana, is there any indication why there has been a change of stance on the part of Prime Minister Mosisili?
Well, at this point in time, we don't even know if he has changed his stance. All we can see is that, first of all, as I say, there have been at least two meetings. There was one on the sidelines of the China-Africa Summit that happened in Pretoria. There was another one that was supposed to happen in Mozambique. And in both those meetings, Lesotho had clearly said that because of that ongoing court case, it was not going to attend. We now understand that the Prime Minister initially we had been told that he would arrive today, but he has not arrived, and officials have now said that, like President Zuma, who will arrive tomorrow, like the chairperson of the Troika, or the organ for defense and politics, President Nyusi, who will arrive tomorrow, and other senior government officials who are representing the other countries. Prime Minister Pakadita Mosisili is also expected to fly out of Lesotho and reach Gaborone tomorrow. Now, all of that remains to be seen. And of course, as you say, if he does come here, we know that the Minister of Foreign Affairs from Lesotho is here. Officials from Lesotho have been attending those meetings with the other officials from the SADC region. So yes, a bit of a change in terms of them agreeing to come to those meetings, and whether or not their stance has changed, all of that we will know tomorrow. Mahindra.
Yes, I know. Is the Troika in any way looking into how best to carry out the recommendations without further straining relations?
Well, you see, that's another thing that we have to wait to find out. As I say, whether the report is released as a result of consensus tomorrow. We've spoken to some of the officials who were meeting on Saturday, and they said to us they're really looking for Lesotho to reach consensus with the rest of SADC for the report to be released. And when we spoke to the Executive Secretary of SADC today, Stego Tex, she clearly said the main objective of this SADC summit is for that report to be tabled. Now, what happens if Lesotho says it doesn't want the report? Again, that remains to be seen. And as I say, all of this we can only know when the meeting actually happens tomorrow. We can only know how Lesotho reacts to the report, or how Lesotho decides to react to the release of the report, or to agree or not agree for the report to be released.
And talking about the report, why has the report been delayed, considering the hearings in Lesotho ended in October?
In fact, on maybe a day or two before the commission actually concluded its hearings in Lesotho, this was around the 20th of October. That's when Judge Pumapi held his proceedings for a minute, stood up and said he had to go to court because a certain Lieutenant Colonel Tifo Hashazi had submitted an application to the High Court. And that application was basically saying, first of all, that he did not want to appear before the commission, which had recalled him on the reason for him wanting not to appear again before the commission, according to him, was that he had been harangued or verbally attacked by Commission Chairperson Judge Pumapi. Now, what he had said, Judge Pumapi, to Colonel Hashatsi was that he would consider him a suspect if he didn't confirm whether he was present or absent when Lieutenant General or Brigadier Mahau was shot. And so when he was called again, he then went to court. The second issue that he wanted was all of the hearings of that commission to be quashed. And so Lesotho says it respects the courts, it respects its judicial system, it wants the courts to be given an opportunity to hear this application and come to an end. It is also supposed to sit tomorrow, by the way, because the first time it sat was at the beginning of December, but then it was moved to the 18th of January. And so tomorrow again in Lesotho is when this court case will be continuing, is when the representations will be made by the attorneys representing Lieutenant Colonel Hashatsi. Now, from what he had said in his initial application when the lawyers presented their preliminary arguments, first of all, was that the commission had almost made a foregone conclusion that he was a suspect and that he considered prejudicial to him. So this is just part of the reason. But we will hear all the arguments tomorrow when they happen in Lesotho, and whether or not this will affect the proceedings here in Botswana now remains to be seen. Mahindra.
Now, Ntakwana, just finally, SADC must be crossing its fingers that its PR outcome once and for all brings calm to this volatile crisis, wouldn't you say?
Well, I suppose so. A lot of people are saying in Lesotho, SADC is perhaps a toothless watchdog. Should SADC even be involved? You remember that there were a lot of questions around SADC being involved in the first place, because some felt that Lesotho should have dealt with this and not got to a position where SADC had to be involved eventually. But now SADC is involved. So a lot of people now saying, should Lesotho listen to what SADC says at perhaps the risk of undermining its own judicial systems? These are Mosisiri supporters, particularly supporters of the government, saying that they side with the government, that the judicial processes in any country, that the justice system in any country should be above and autonomous of the executive. And if the executive, through SADC, even tried to undermine the judiciary, that Lesotho would regret it for a long time to come. But will SADC perhaps make another decision if Lesotho doesn't want to accept this report? Can SADC act like it did with Mauritius and expel Lesotho? This is what some of the people are saying. Some are saying that officials in Lesotho should be subjected to sanctions like it was done with Zimbabwe. But all of this, again, remains or hinges on what the decision is tomorrow when the report is released and if the report is released. Mahindra.
Thank you very much indeed, Ntakwana. We shall wait and see for tomorrow's outcome. Well, that's our correspondent, Ntakwana Natane, joining us on the line from Gaborone, Botswana.